Whoa, Dad, go, Dad.
Hey y'all, Dave Mopper here. Welcome in. This pod is a compilation of lessons in fatherhood and leadership. I'm using it to explore the path to raising legends, and I'm sharing it all with you. Each episode provides a really raw and unique perspective on fatherhood, and it's what I've come to love about these conversations. There is something for every father who's in growth mode. All right, enjoy the combo. Mr. Dan Smith, welcome in to Whoa Dad, Go Dad. How we doing, man?
Awesome, brother. Excited to be here.
Glad to have you on. We got one of the most critical topics. It seems so timely and relevant to discuss the rites of passage of young men, young women too. I know that you're doing a lot of work in that space, and anyone listening, the topic will lead us down a path where we'll learn a lot about how do we actually set our kids up with rites of passage in a culture that, at least for a long while, hasn't had them formally. And you've got some big things going on with
Yes, I do.
Voyage Rites. I see it on your hat there.
Yes, sir.
And some big announcements and whatnot. But before we get to exactly what you're up to, how you're doing it, and maybe what's special about your timing and your situation, I got to know how you even got here. Like, who was Dan Smith 20 years ago and 10 years ago and 5 years ago that led to this work being so obviously needed to you that you're like, I'm going to quit doing all of this and go do all of that? So,
Oh man, such a fascinating journey in my life and something I never could have arranged or predicted. You mentioned 20 years ago, and I didn't think we'd go back that far, but I actually think that is the place where it started. It was my experiences as a teenager. I grew up in a great household. My twin brother David, who you've had on, and a younger brother and older sister. And my parents stayed together. They are still married to this day, going on 40 years. And my dad was a great dad. He's always worked very hard for my family, and he's loved my mom to this day, as I said. But there was a missing piece, and I didn't quite know what it was as a kid or as a teenager. I always looked up to my dad. Solid man of faith, solid worker. But there was something missing there. Couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then I struggled as a teenager. We grew up in the church. My grandfather on my mom's side was a pastor, and we continued that pattern through my childhood and teenage years. And when I was around 16, and I got my first job at a Chick-fil-A, no less, the Lord's chicken, as they say, I ended up just sort of drifting and sort of rebelling in my own way, and really internalizing a lot of things that I was facing, normal things that teenage boys face, and changing hormones, and getting out into the world and experiencing things I'd never experienced before, but really didn't know how to handle it at all. Didn't know who I was. Looking back, I was becoming a man, but didn't know what it meant to be a man. Was still very much engaged in the childish and selfish patterns of boyhood. And until I was about 19, and I decided that I was going to go to Old Dominion for college. Between that 16, 19 age range, that was a really dark time for me. And knowing what I know now about rites of passage, and about a father's role in being intentional and helping guide his son into manhood, looking back, I really think I could have received that very well. It could have done a world of difference in my life and the struggles that I face as a teenager. So I start there because now, as I approach 37, I've got 3 boys myself. My oldest will turn 10 in July, and my youngest just turned 4. So it's a loud house, very loud and rambunctious. But I have felt the weight on me as their father to make sure that they grow up into the men that they need to become. And how does one do that? How does a father do that? Well, I didn't know. I was dedicated to my job, working in law enforcement. I was 6 years as a local cop, in Virginia, and then ended up joining the FBI and working out in New York City for several years. Traveled a lot, spent a bunch of time overseas, and I realized firsthand that the life I was living was for my job. It wasn't for my family, and the impact that my absence had on my boys was noticeable and present. So I got back from an extended trip in Africa and really decided that my goal for the next year was to uh, not travel as much, be more present for my boys. But outside of that, that was the face of the intention right there. Like I didn't have anything else other than that. But then, uh, as God ordained, the Apogee Men's Program, came along right at that exact time, and the growth I experienced from that was phenomenal. And that's how we got connected, was through the Apogee Network. Yeah,
So
man.
good. So many good dudes in that program. And I suspect so many good women as well. I tell my wife about the women's side of things, and that might be a good path for her down the road. But yeah, just, the intentionality behind apogee is the word you used earlier. Like, how do we be intentional in every little aspect of our
Hmm.
lives,
Right.
especially fatherhood? So, gosh, I was just thinking about your experience with your dad. You're like, he did a pretty good job. Whatever he did to the best of his ability in good faith.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking about all the dads in the last, dads that are currently, say, in your dad's age group or my dad's age group, which is probably like 55 to 70 years old, something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they if you had a dad that was, say, present or available and hardworking and wholesome and good, like you kind of that was a good thing, and not everyone had that. But for those who did have that, there still might be this missing component of a formal rite of passage because for some reason isn't uh, baked into our culture any longer. And so your dad
Hmm.
and some they just they just didn't know what they didn't know, almost.
Exactly.
But what
Exactly.
explains how we got here with that in mind? Like,
Mm.
the conditions where fathers didn't realize it was their duty or role. Like, we kinda lost touch with that as a
Hmm.
culture, as a
Hmm.
society. What has happened? And I have a theory, or
Man.
I had
Mhm.
something came across my radar that I think might explain it, but what's your sense of how we got to that point?
Mhm. Well, it's been something that's been noticed and has been felt for a long while now. And in my research, um, I've come across a good explanation that I agree with. I don't know if it's been studied specifically, but the theory goes that before the Industrial Revolution, Western culture, I mean, it assumed the role of the father in the house. The father, there was an agricultural society, so the entire family worked together on the farm to help provide for the family. So the fathers would take the boys out into the fields with them, and they would learn side by side with their dad, and that's how they were raised until they were old enough to start doing the tasks of the farm on their own, and the father would support them. It's almost a mini hero's journey in and of itself. And then the Industrial Revolution occurred, so the men were called out of the field into the workforce, into the factories, and the factories needed that manpower in order to operate successfully. So now you have all the men leading the farms, and they hired men who weren't part of their family to run the farm, and they went to the field. So what happened to the boys? Well, they went into the home with the mother. So now you have the children being raised by the mother, which is not wrong in and of itself. But then feminism came along and said, well, the mother needs to work too. They need to have equal rights the with the dad, with the man who is in the factory working. So now the women leave the house and come alongside the father, and in a different capacity, but they're working in the workforce. So now what do we do with the kids? Well, they're in the home by themselves. They can't have that. So let's send them to public school. So then you have the advent of the public school system in the 1920s, whatever it was, and now the family is split up in all these different areas, and they only come back together at the end of the day for just a couple hours when everybody's tired, and short fuses, and then they go to bed and do it all over again. So the amount of time, going back to the father son issue, the amount of time my father had with his son, let alone his kids and family, has been drastically reduced week to week and year to year because of all these things that have occurred societally. Now, those things in and of themselves haven't necessarily been wrong. A culture has to evolve and change as times change, but it has had a negative impact on the family. So, what do we do with all that information? Well, we have to understand that the fathers today, you and I both, we've just been doing what we know to be best. But what we do know to be best is not the whole picture. For thousands of years, cultures around the world have had rites of passage into manhood, and they've done it in a way that ensures the boys have understanding of what their future means as a man. So it's not just a physical transformation that they go through with puberty, but it is a mental clarity for their future. And that's really like the deep psychological underpinnings of a rite of passage. It provides them that clarity. You see it in society today. Boys will go all through all kinds of means and manners to try to prove that they have what it takes. They don't really know that they're searching for this answer to this question, but they're constantly trying to prove themselves and ultimately prove themselves to themselves that they are a man. So they'll take on all kinds of different activities, some good, some bad, mostly bad, I would argue. Narcotics, alcohol, um, hazing rituals, which is I always think is really funny because fraternities revert to hazing rituals. So they're searching for a ritual aspect in and of itself, but they don't know that that's what they really need, but actually in a better format from their elders, from their fathers, in a rite of passage format. So you have all these boys just continuing to search and search and search until they become broken, and then they start to understand like the humility aspect of leadership, and like this is where I need to be. Like I've been searching for it in all the wrong areas. I need to be a servant leader in my household for my kids. And you get a lot of men reaching that point, which is a good thing, and I think that's been part of a result of the I, I don't want to say manosphere because that has a different connotation, but the masculine coaching world that has developed over the past decade or so. And it's done good for the men, but why did we even reach there in the first place? Because there's a vacuum. There's a vacuum of a lack of proper men raising boys into who they need to become. So my intent, my goal is to come alongside a father, give him the information that he didn't know he needed to help him raise his boy into a proper definition of manhood, and then his son won't have to go through life searching and searching and searching and then be broken in order to finally get there. So reaching that point without all that pain is the intent, and helping him understand what it means to be a man.
Let's go. Yes. Okay. So, but then,
Yeah.
God darn, man, there's so many. I was thinking about the idea that I was, gosh, for anyone listening, that was just a lot of rambling, but I realized the Industrial Revolution is a large factor in this. That shift in our way of living as a culture, in this country or across the world, that it seems to explain a lot of this. And yet, to your point, it's not that it was wrong or right that happened. That's just the natural evolution of society. It even probably took kids and put them in, before there were child labor laws. Like kids were getting yanked out of their growth journey and just put into the factory system themselves.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, like, it's so interesting that what our society valued, uh, because there was still this goal to produce things, but the method in which we produce things changed big time. Because back in the day, you still produced things, but you produced for your individual tribe or your family, and you had to. Part of being productive was to be able to protect as well. So we were raising like these sturdy, hardy, warrior-minded men who, I wonder what their mindset was, because I really want to come back to explore this. Their mindset, they could actually see a path. I don't think we're giving our kids clarity on that path, so I really want to play with that.
Right.
But with all that acknowledgement, what I want to hear from you a little bit is what is the preferred outcome that we are lacking in society? If we want to raise boys into great men, what does that actually consist of these days? That maybe for the last 100 years or so has been missing. Is it? Do we? Apparently somebody or something, the system or the overlords or whoever, whatever, don't want this type of man in society, and so that has the system covertly duped us into this different path that obviously omits these rites of passage and the clarity and so forth. Is there a grand conspiracy to soften us as men in society, or is it just coincidence? What's your sense of this?
Man, you're getting to some spiritual undertones, is where I think this is going. I, as a believer, I don't believe in coincidence. So when I look at society and when I look at the play that has been run for decades that is against men, that is against boys, with the Industrial Revolution, with the public school system, all really to the detriment of masculinity as a whole, I see it as spiritual warfare, as a long play by the enemy at work against the men who are called to be the leaders in the home. And as leaders, we are required to be more risk averse, to take more risk, to be more manly, so to speak, as what society would say. And that type of man is a dangerous man. And when that type of man starts to realize who he is and what is required of him and his responsibility to lead and to protect and to provide, then the world is going to ostracize that kind of man, because the world is at a point where they say, "Oh, we have women who could be leaders. We can all do what you do. We don't need you." And to me, that's a long play of the enemy. And our role, our path forward, is to combat that spiritually and practically with reaching fathers who can pour into their sons from a young age.
And this term it comes up in the apogee realm quite a bit, but sovereignty, raising
Yes.
sovereign humans. That's the point of this podcast too, is how do we raise, I call it raising legends, but that's really how do we raise a sovereign youngsters, or raise youngsters that become sovereign adults. And the world, although the world wants us to have abundance and to be productive and maybe even consumers in a way, it doesn't want sovereignty. It wants
No.
it wants confirmation. It wants mediocrity, maybe even. It wants, what else does the world currently wants?
Well,
The
as for men,
opposite of
that
sovereignty. What? Yeah, tell me more about your sense.
yeah,
Of what?
men that manifest as passivity. When
Good call.
Adam and Eve were in the garden, Eve took that apple. Most people are familiar with this story. Where was Adam? Some people don't even think about that question. Like, where was Adam when all this was happening? Well, he was actually standing right next to her. He was being passive,
Mm.
which to me indicates really the first sin of Adam, who was called to be a leader, was called to work the garden and to keep the garden. To me, that's all encompassing of our mission to protect, provide, and to lead. And he didn't do any of that when he just stood there and let his wife be tempted and to succumb to sin. So it comes down to passivity to me, and society would love for men to just remain passive and content, and to not lean into the greatness that is required of us to be leaders, to lead our families properly. And it's not easy. It's incredibly difficult to be that kind of man. Scripture actually says that our the ultimate version of a man is Jesus. And what did he do? He willingly sacrificed himself on a cross, which is like we're called to lead like Jesus led, and to lead like that, like it almost a sense of fear arises within me. Like, really, I have to like lead so much so that it requires that level of humility to sacrifice myself completely for those that I love? Well, yes. And since it's so difficult, society can easily push men to remain passive, like Adam was. It's like, oh, that's hard. You can just stay on the couch this weekend. It's okay. You got that. You got to go out, or you've been thinking about going out with your son. Well, that can wait another week. There's a football game on. And it just sort of lends to that our natural tendencies to be passive, and that's not what we're required to do, especially as fathers.
Actually, as conscious human beings, like that separates us from the animal kingdom big time. Is the I don't know if this is free will, but the conscious choice to do what's hard, despite it being hard, because we know better. That's sovereignty,
Yeah.
right? That's like the mindset of a
Yeah.
sovereign individual. And you're right. The world is making apathy and passivity and conformity so delicious and enticing,
Oh yeah.
and we're just that's what we're. I mean, that's why we're talking right now. That's why we're both in apathy,
Hmm.
because we're here,
Yeah.
we're here putting a stake in the ground, saying that this is not.
Right.
This is going to make you just think about the generational ripple effect. If we carry on this path, what does happen if we don't solve for this? What do you think the implications are of this dynamic for our country, for our families, for our
Mm.
institutions,
Hmm.
for our way of life
Yeah.
in another decade,
Well.
5 decades, or 100 years? What
Hmm.
sense?
Well, I think we're already starting to see it. And it's the normalization of the lack of gender, the lack of gender roles. They're saying we're all equal. Well, they're saying we're equal to the point that men need to reduce the masculine portions of themselves so they can be gender neutral, and women should reduce the feminine part of themselves, increase the masculine in women so that they can be gender neutral. And now we're just these ambiguous autonomous beings that exist without gender. And that's not how we were designed. We're designed at a base, fundamental scientific level to be two different kinds of people, women and men, male and female. And we're already seeing in our world, in our society, that, how do I articulate this correctly? The removal of gender roles. And again, this goes back to the Industrial Revolution, it goes back to feminism and all that, all those things. But we're starting to see the end result of that, with the rise of transgenderism and all of the things that come with that. And that if it continues on the path that it is, it's going to get even worse, even worse. We're already seeing all kinds of things coming out of it.
No doubt about it. Now, men and women are equally important, but not equal
Correct.
in kind of specialty, you might say. We complement each other, of course.
Hmm.
It's the yin and yang here.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
and I see that. You and I see that, and I think a lot of our contemporaries see that. But
Hmm.
for some reason, and we don't have to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but there's a lot of forces and influences that are prompting people to
Hmm.
to throw that reality away. And
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
just, the end product is just a really soft, um, wandering society, without any intention, without any purpose, easily
Yep.
manipulated, no
Yes.
convictions. And of course, when that happens, there's so much apathy. Apathy is the status quo. It's like that's when bad things happen across
Hmm.
an entire population of people.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think there is an awareness and an awakening taking place, and
Hmm.
you can see it. The signal, or the initial signal, is in the movement for you know strong, healthy, virtuous masculinity, which we're in that work right now through apogee and other means. It's like there is this grand awakening taking place, fortunately, and I'm encouraged.
Yeah.
And I love that. I have a 2.5-year-old at this point, and later I'm in my mid 40s. I'm like, you know, what a time to be in leadership training, to be a young father, and to see that there's a vacuum. You said earlier on in the conversation, there's a vacuum for some reason, and yet with that vacuum comes a great need to, answer some of these questions that are being conveyed by our society. Like, how do we get recentered? How do we achieve clarity for ourselves as fathers so we can then provide clarity for our youngsters? Tell me a little bit more about we're still kind of playing in this problem space, because of course you've got an answer to all this. You've got a solution, which I'm looking forward to getting to. But I'm just thinking about, for those dads in the last, couple decades who have raised, young men in their 20s and 30s, 40s right now. So the dads that I mentioned earlier, those that are, say, 55 to 70-year-old dads, and we're their sons right now.
Mhm.
They didn't necessarily have rites of passage to guide us through as formally as perhaps back in the day, where you sent your kid off into the woods and they had to battle a bear and a wolf and a lion all the same day, and they had no,
Yeah.
just their own, just a spear and their own, rigor
Yeah.
and fire. So what are the current ways where there are pseudo rites of passage? I'm thinking of like Boy Scouts, and my dad took me
Mm-hmm.
elk hunting when I was 12 years old, and I killed my first
Yeah.
animals. Like, that was a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't explicit about it. I don't even know if he thought of it
Right.
that way. But hell, it taught me what it meant to take life and to
Yeah.
just, a food source for the family, even though I don't know that I thought of it at age 12 that I was doing that. But, and to, I was covered in blood and guts, and that was crazy and gnarly, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm out in the woods with him in that instance and many other instances, learning to, go into the woods prepared in case something happened. Even if you're on a little day hike, you've got
Yeah.
shelter or the means to build shelter. You've got a knife, you've got a fire starter,
Yep.
a whistle, you got a compass. Like, to go in and be prepared and be able to survive in the woods. Like, my dad taught my brother and I that,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a couple other little things. Like, every weekend when we lived in the mountains of Colorado before we moved down into the city, we would go harvest firewood. I mean, we lived in a house with electricity, but it was more cost effective to go up into the woods, old logging piles, all the kind of scrap logs that weren't worth taking down into the commercial, supply chain, would be left in a pile, and you could get a permit and you come up, and my dad would chainsaw up a bunch of logs, right, in the right length. My mom and my brother and I assembly line, organize and stack them in the back of the pickup. And we were doing, like, we were I don't know if that was a rite of passage, but kind of. We were just
Mm.
like hardy stuff,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Hard stuff, hardy stuff, family
Mm.
stuff. And it felt like they were equipping us to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's there's like quasi rites of passage out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see that are
Mm-hmm.
kind of in our culture, that are available currently, that aren't
Mm. Mm.
completely sufficient, but they're here and there? What do you notice?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to lean into your story because I love every bit about it. And it's very akin to how I use the analogy of a voyage as our journey, as our masculine journey. So as a kid, your dad sort of led the way to get you trained up with the firewood and with chopping logs, and to get you the skills and knowledge necessary to kind of go out. And you did. When you reached of age, you went out on a hunt, and you experienced everything that was required of you during that hunt. This as a holistic approach, this is sort of the pathway to masculinity, is that the father comes alongside his sons. He walks with them day to day, week to week, really knowing and understanding what his son is experiencing so that he can walk alongside him and disciple him and help form him into the boy that he needs to become. And then when he's ready, when he crosses certain markers of readiness, he can then understand that, okay, now my son is ready to be initiated into manhood. Then go on a hunt, go on a rite of passage, and then you're experiencing something completely different. The historical anthropological research on rites of passage going back to the early 1900s defines a rite of passage as beginning with separation, and then the initiation can occur, and then reincorporation kind of back into society as now a different person. You've kind of left the old behind and become the man now. And that sounds to me is exactly what happened on that hunt with your dad. You were able to go out to a completely different environment you never been to before. You made the kill, you experienced the initiation with the blood and everything, even though it wasn't like articulated or planned. It satisfied something deep in your soul psychologically. And that, like, there are so many great dads out there who sort of see and understand that, oh, my son, he's coming of age now, I gotta do something. Well, what is that something? Well, some guys, it comes to fruition as a hunt, and something like you experience, which is awesome, and I absolutely love it. Some dads will sit in that moment of I got to do something, and they flounder, and then they lean into passivity, and they're like, "Well, he'll be okay. He'll figure it out like I did." And so many dads have that mindset, and that's leaning into the passivity that they're walking in. And now you sort of created a world of struggles for your son where he's constantly going to be seeking and seeking and seeking, and who knows what that'll turn into, you know. So I absolutely love that, and I don't even think I answered specifically your question, but I just love that story so much. It's right along the lines of what a voyage means. Like, there's preparation before the journey, and then once you launch, once you go on that expedition, like once you're initiated and you set sail, then you're on the seas of your life as a man, and you have to be ready to face whatever is going to come at you. You have to be responsible for the ship that you're on. You have to make sure it doesn't deteriorate and it doesn't fail you. And then you have to be ready for the storms. You got to be ready for the sea monsters. You got to be ready for other ships coming alongside or against you. Like, I absolutely love that analogy. That's why I chose it as the name for Voyage Rites, is because it's such a great analogy in alignment with the masculine journey. But we'll go back to your question. You have to repeat it for me.
Well, I mean, we'll just evolve the question a little bit, but are you with the poet who wrote Invictus? Do you know this? Do you know this poem?
um,
This is such a great poem.
it's a pop quiz, and I'm failing.
It's okay.
I can't remember.
So I'm going to read you this poem because it is all about the voyage of life and becoming the captain of one's soul. So it says, "Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul."
I love that.
That's
I've heard that poem before.
that has been it's in my email signature because I'm like, it is up to me to truly take the helm of my own ship of life.
Yes.
And I get that. And I think I got that from my dad and my mom. I think they granted me that somehow, but it wasn't
Mhm.
this formal process. It wasn't a
Right.
ceremony. It was just, they had a good sense, I guess. And I lucked out maybe, or whatever you'd say, right? But it is upon us now as fathers in this particular moment
Yes.
in time to take greater agency and to be the stewards of the path
Mhm.
and to set them on a journey, a voyage.
Yeah.
What do we do before? And I guess let's get clear about the age in which a rite of passage could start taking place. Is it the
Mm-hmm.
12 to 18, 12 to
Mm-hmm.
18, I'm guessing, like
Yeah.
in there?
Yeah. So with the structure of a rite of passage that I mentioned, the separation, initiation, reincorporation, that actually occurs several times. and at the same time, one overarching rite of passage as part of the journey. So this is talked about in Joseph Campbell's work with the hero's journey, how it has a cyclical nature to it. You repeat it several times throughout your life, and a rite of passage specifically initiating into manhood would occur post puberty. So 13 to
Okay.
18. I have to consider the age of 18 because society has said you're an adult at age 18. So, as part of society, we can't really remove ourselves. Well, I guess you theoretically can, but as part of society, you're going to be looked at as an adult at 18. So I would definitely say an initiation into manhood rite of passage needs to occur post puberty to somewhere between post puberty and 18. Uh, the journey to me, it starts before puberty. If you've read the book Hold On to Your Kids, that is a phenomenal book. It talks about peer orientation versus parent orientation.
Mm.
And kind of by the time you get to teenagehood or adolescence, as they say, if they're peer oriented, it's incredibly difficult to kind of bring them back to parent oriented. To me, that starts pre puberty. So, 8 years old, there's a developmental leap that naturally occurs already. They're starting to have more questions. They're starting to notice different things about the world, about their parents, about themselves, physically and mentally. So, 8 years old is really an ideal time frame. So the ideal time frame before puberty, 8 to 12, is when a father really needs to start stepping in and walking and forming his son so that he's prepared. You can initiate a boy who's not prepared, and I won't say it's going to go wrong or it'll be wrong in and of itself. I don't think you'll receive the same substance and value out of it.
Mm.
He will receive that like initiation, like understanding of who he is at a soul level. That will still happen. But there's so much more fruit and betterness that can come out of it if you've been forming your son, preparing him for this moment, this initiation moment. So the walk starts early, before puberty.
I mean, that was my sense. I'm like, okay, so if
Mhm,
someone's listening to this and they have, like myself, a two and a
mhm,
half year old, or you just had your first kiddo and they're,
mhm.
a fresh little nugget, it's like you don't have to get caught up in like the early days and there being
Yeah,
just savor those,
yeah,
and especially,
yeah, yeah.
I was thinking I said this with a recent podcast interview and a friend of mine named Mark Wes, like he actually gave me this line or this realization where, the first, whatever it is, 4, 5, 6 years of age for my kid is about protecting their innocence. That's nothing else, boy or girl,
Mhm,
just want them to
mhm,
be, think about from, you know, terrorism and pornography and social, like
mhm,
all these things
mhm.
that are reality. And
Yep.
you're like, you're, you're going to be subject to these pressures. But
Mhm.
for as long as I can, I do want to protect your innocence. But I
Yeah.
know I'm going to put Leo, my little dude, through a rite of
Mhm,
passage, and I'm going to probably do a little bit more than say my dad did for me, and make it more of a ceremonial thing as well too. And
mhm, mhm,
we're going to get to how you formulate this, but my friend Mark Guay, we had a little talk about rites of passage. And I was like, oh, this next one with my buddy Dan, you're going to want to hear this podcast. He's like, part of it is having uh, other father figures or male figures
mhm, mhm,
as like the tribe that the person the your youngster goes through the experience and realizes that he's now in that tribe, right? So
mhm.
that he's part of
Yeah.
the community and whatnot. So I know I'll do something, and meanwhile, for the next little bit, I am going to continue just maintaining the innocence of my little adorable
Mhm.
son. But at a certain
Yep.
point in the next little bit, I will begin preparing him for the eventual ultimate journey. So what is there to do between whatever that age is where innocence is no longer something you can perfectly protect? It's like whatever that age is 5, 6, 7, something like that. And you said puberty, right? So somewhere between the age of innocence
Yeah.
and puberty is the preparation leading up to the
Yeah.
ultimate, maybe a couple of versions of, and then the ultimate rite of passage. What is there to do that we should be thinking of as fathers in those kind of those middle years to prepare for the ultimate rite of
That's a really good question. Really good question. So going back to their early years, where you're at now, with 2.5 years old, that is the mother's territory, so to speak. So the mother's role is to nurture their children from a very, very young age. They are naturally equipped and prepared for that role to be their child's primary nurturer. Now, there does come a time where you as a father become his primary nurturer, and I believe that that is around that puberty age range, whether that's before initiation, or initiation is the catalyst that kind of gets you there. But there comes a point where the mother has to sort of hand her son off to his father or a male mentor. Now, I know fatherlessness is a very real thing that so many mothers experience, and I have to hand it to single moms because they already have a huge burden in and of itself, but then also trying to fill the role of a father is incredibly difficult, and I would actually say impossible to completely fill it. So trying to bring male mentors around your son is absolutely what he needs the most to rise into the man he needs to become. So going back to your question about that kind of middle age range, most of what it looks like is being present, and it might not necessarily mean taking the reins yet of being the primary nurturer, but being present so that you're not just this outside force coming in when it is your time, but you've become present and consistent, and you've supported his mother, and you've been there for him when he needs you, and you've created this pattern of intentionality from a young age, so that when it does become time, like, hey, I'm going to take a bigger role in forming you, in discipling you, then it's not a big, strange, unexpected thing to be happening. You're already a solid present figure in his life. And I remind dads of this all the time. In fact, I'm doing a father and child event for my church next month, and it's called Built to be Present. The biggest thing I want dads to understand is that all the pressure you receive to be perfect, it is nothing compared to just being present. Like, you don't have to be the perfect dad. In fact, you're going to fail over and over and over again. And you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that hurt and that weakness inside of you. But what is important to remember is you being present is far more important than the perfection you think is required. So maintaining that presence throughout those middle years is what's the most important to me.
Indeed. I'm with that. I like that. So being present so that then you almost, if you are present, intentionally present, you then will have granted yourself permission to steward them to this arduous stage of life, or this
Yeah.
this rites of passage stage. Without that, there's a lot of trust, I suppose, if we're going to put our kiddos through a
Yep.
ceremony of sorts, a ritual of sorts, a rite of passage. There's potential resistance. It's scary. It's a
Mm-hmm.
transformative thing. If you actually were explicit
Yes.
about it, what you know, how you describe
Mm-hmm.
it could be daunting and intimidating. And
Yeah.
yet they need to
Yeah.
believe that this is the journey that you went on, or the path that all,
Mm-hmm.
all people go on.
Yeah.
If you haven't built that rapport with them, they're not going to be able to
Right.
believe.
Right. That reminds me of something that happened at one of my events last year. Father-son event. We're out in the woods, and part of the activity is the son gets blindfolded, and it's designed to help him find his courage, and he has to sort of walk a path blindfolded, not knowing where he's going, but his dad's with him the whole time, telling him where to step, what to step over, when to duck under something, and the boy did not want to put the blindfold on. He was scared to death. But the father was there present and was able to reassure him. And I think this was in large part due to the level of trust had already been established through his presence and intentionality leading up to that moment. He was able to reassure him, like, it's going to be okay. I'm going to be there with you the entire time. I'm not leaving you. And he put on the blindfold and he did the whole activity, and he came out like so excited and happy, and he loved it, every moment of it. The boy did. But it was large part due, in fact, to the father's intentionality and his presence and the level of trust he had established.
He was able to gain that connection with his son in that moment. But what we're kind of getting at is, and thank goodness, right? It'd be, I can see that being a challenging dynamic that as a facilitator of these experiences, like what if they didn't? What if dad and son don't have that connection, and like all of a sudden they're supposed to just formulate it in the next
Right.
minutes, like
Right.
so there's actually, there's something about being present and so there's probably a million activities and experiences in life that you can seize. That could
Mhm.
be in the home or just in your local neighborhood
Yep.
or out in the world, to show your son that you have their back, that you've got,
Yes.
that you're there with
Yes.
them, and that you're a partner on this journey, so to speak. You're still. It's not that you're trying to become friends with your kid per se, but more like you're still their father figure. You're still there
Yes.
to
Yeah.
reprimand and hold them accountable and so
Yep.
forth. But I was just thinking about little other, you want to show them that you're present and put them through little tests for them to realize
Mhm.
what it means to kind of go just up to the edge of their comfort zone, and that
Yes.
they can manage that. And oh, look, dad is still there. It also,
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
Yeah, and I believe these moments naturally facilitate themselves when a father is spending that intentional time one on one with his son.
mm,
Just last week, my 4 year old, he was having some cranky days. And we get that as dads. Like these kids can sometimes that something's gotten into them and they're just cranky and nothing makes them happy. But I got home from work and I sat down on the bed with him and I said, "Hey, did you just miss your dad?" And he just kind of nodded his head like this. So I took him out to the garage because there's stuff I needed to do. I needed to do some reorganizing and stuff. And he was just out there with me as I was accomplishing a task. And this to me was, it was a great in-person learning moment of the shoulder to shoulder aspect that boys need to be walking with their sons or boys need to be walking with their dads. So he was curious what I was doing. I would explain something to him. I wasn't short or harsh. I would take the time. Sometimes it takes time to sort of dumb it down and explain it on their level, but it's super important because it shows them that you're interested in them and what they see. So the same thing can be done with boys of other age. Hey, he wants to learn how to ride a bike. Get on your bike and go ride bikes with him, laps around the neighborhood just for a few minutes. Hey, you have the ability to take your son to work with you. Hey, maybe once a week or once a month. Your son just packs a lunch and comes to work with you and he sees what his dad does. And maybe there's little things you do throughout the day at work. It's like, hey, can you go run this down to the office down the hall for me? And now you're placing trust in him. And he's able to make his dad proud. Although it's a super simple task, it means the world to him. And those little moments, that pattern of intentionality and presence, pays huge dividends down the line when now it's your turn to be his primary nurturer and discipler into manhood.
it's so good because it's so presence is the big idea that can show
Mm-hmm.
up by simply like setting your phone aside and being zoned in with them and being present in the moment. That's one version.
100%.
Or it could be,
Yep.
I'm gonna do my work. Like I'm in a basement garage setup. I got my office back here, and
Yeah, me too.
we just organized the hell out of the like all of our gear, and you got some bikes over here and tools and uh, two big workbench tops that were covered in crap, dude. It's so silly. These workbenches aren't very workable when they're covered in Christmas stuff from
Yep.
3 months ago. But we were just cleaning up together. So I'm hearing like be present at large, be present perhaps in certain moments, which means set aside distractions. But to be present always also is to show them what work looks like, to show them what responsibility is, to
Yeah.
and sh- give them little tasks of responsibility or challenges. There's
Hmm.
another recent podcast interview where this gentleman Jim Nelligan would give his three sons he's like, all right, here's $5 or $10. You have to go in the store and get yourself some what you need. Go like you're making sure it's a safe situation, right? But you're like, you go do that, right? So you're pushing them with tasks, you're equipping them with responsibility, you're just showing them. It's almost like you're emulating the dynamic of seeing the world when you're shoulder to shoulder back in the day when they were working on the ranch or the farm or the land with you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're kind of
Yep.
you're revealing to them in a controlled environment tasks, duties, responsibilities, being productive, being dependable. You're just you're just showing them, not forcing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you add anything else to those middle years? Like what presence, task, responsibility, challenging yourself, you know?
I really wouldn't. I really wouldn't. And I'd say no just because we can put too much on ourselves as dads and as men. Uh, and not saying we can't handle it, but the more we try to require from ourselves, the more likely we are to fail. So I like to keep it super simple. Be present. You don't even have to do all those things like responsibility and trust like that. Those are important. Don't get me wrong. But if you just sit on the couch with your son for 10 minutes and put your phone down every day and let what happens happen. He might start climbing on you. You might start tickling him, whatever. That's the presence that is required. All those other things, they will naturally occur because I believe it's our default setting as fathers to boys. Like those things are going to start happening. Like you're going to say, "Well, I need to do something. Come on over with me, buddy." And he comes. Like just again, another example just the other day. I had to bust out the circular saw out of my shed and cut some stuff up, and my 7 year old, soon to be 8 next month, I was like, come on over here. And that's really all I said. Uh, and I got set up. I made a few cuts, and then I had to stop for whatever reason. And he was like, "Daddy, are we going to keep doing this?" Like he wanted to keep doing it, with me. Like even though he was kind of just watching and asking questions, like that's what it's all about. It's just sometimes it's just follow me.
Yep. Just share everything you're up to.
Yeah.
That's as much as you can.
Yes.
Let them see you navigating, sorting out, making judgments on the
Yeah.
world, using tools like Leo just loves. I mean, he's got his own little toolkit and he tries to,
Yes.
yeah, he tries to take a drill to the bike frame, which we're like, hey, no, 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 there's a little bit of protocol here.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just
Mm-hmm.
testing. He's loving
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And we're just,
Yeah. And that reminds me. Yeah, that reminds me of a great tip for dads. Hey, next time you're at Home Depot, buy one of those $1 wrenches and maybe a $5 toolbox
yeah,
and say, "Hey son, here's your toolbox and here's your first tool." And then over the years, if you're at Home Depot, grab another cheap tool. By the time he's old enough to make his way in the world, he's got a toolbox full of tools that his dad gave him and he knows how to use.
that's the best.
So, pro tip,
Pro
free
tip.
of charge.
Free of charge pro tip, and then grandparents can add to that toolkit. By the way, my
Oh, 100%. Yep.
it's great. It's like, what do you want? What do you want us to get Leo for his birthday? Or for it's like put some money in the bank account for him and get him some tools.
Yep.
Uh,
I love it.
we're almost to the point where you give us the best practices of this
Yeah,
rite of
man.
passage. Tell us about Voyage Rites, but I want to hear almost. I was just recognizing, little girls need to become women,
Yeah.
and there's a rite of
Mhm.
passage involved in their journey
Mhm.
as well. Are
Mhm.
you in a place? You got three little boys. We're talking largely about taking our
Yeah.
boys from boys to
Mhm.
adolescence to manhood.
Yep.
But we can't neglect our
No, not at
the
all.
better half of our society. So, what's your sense of what the journey looks
Mhm.
like for
Yeah.
women?
Yeah, it's definitely different. And I think that understanding needs to be fundamental to what a feminine journey would look like. And I'll caveat all this to say, as you just mentioned, I've got 3 boys. I don't have girls. God saw it fit that I had boys, and that's what he needed of me and
Yep.
required of me. So I don't pretend to know that I know what it means to raise a girl as a father. I've witnessed it firsthand. My best friend has girls. My twin brother has girls, and I do understand though at a really a fundamental level, girls have a biological initiation into manhood that without a doubt, without any sort of doubt in their mind, they know for a fact that they are a woman now and can bear a child. And that naturally satisfies a deeper psychological need that boys don't get. And that's why I believe that having a rite of passage for a boy into manhood is of more critical importance than it is for a girl. Now, would there be value in it? Would it be well received and it absolutely an incredible experience, and provide a huge boost to the relationship between father and daughter? 100%. And I highly encourage it. I do not have the firsthand experience with girls to facilitate those now. Now I do have plans in the future to look into what it would be for a father to facilitate this whole path, this whole journey and rites of passage for his daughter. Um, so stand by. Maybe within the next 5 to 10 years, I'll start evaluating that based off of my experience with boys. Or if the right father comes along who wants to take that on, I'll walk with him. White father of daughters, and I think that's even better because he'll understand it better than at a deeper level than I would. So I'm actively looking for that right guy. So someday, if you're out there listening to this, whether it's years from now, hey, reach out because uh, it's much needed too. There's been a world of war against women and femininity, just as much, if not more so, than men and masculinity. So it is on our duty as fathers and as men to lead. So I believe there is a man out there who will help set this path up right.
Yeah, and I can imagine, that the stewardship comes from both father being the leader of the
Hmm.
family unit, perhaps in our traditional perspective here, but the mother is part of that as well. So I'm just thinking
Yep,
maybe there
that's a big part of it. Yep.
maybe there is a mom out there or a contingent of moms who are doing the rite of passage for their daughters and have some sort of
Hmm.
coupling, some complementary couple
Yeah,
to what you're up to. So
I would love it.
yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that. Of course, there's
Yeah.
you said a biological, right? So we understand that girls go through something formally that turn them into women more than little boys would without some
Right.
sort of intentionality. Your
Yes.
your focus is largely on the rites of passages from boyhood to manhood then. So let's
Hmm.
acknowledge that. And finally, I want to hear how you're doing that. Voyage Rites is
Hmm.
content and curriculum. It's actual programming. It's retreats. You're
Hmm.
facilitating. Did I miss
Hmm.
something? Or did I add something? What is
No, it's
Rites?
it's all of those separately and together. Uh, it's been an amazing journey over the past 3 years developing Voyage Rites and into what it is now. And I've done a lot of different things. Some things have worked well, some things just fell flat and didn't work at all, which is all part of the learning experience when
Great experiment, huh?
walking into your calling. Yeah, yeah. But what the two things that have worked really, really well. One is when I ask a father to do something for his son in a way that blesses his son, every single time the father has just knocked it out of the park. Just absolutely crushed it in ways I could never have even imagined. And I absolutely loved that. It was something I never saw coming for some reason. But fathers are almost waiting for somebody to call them up into their responsibility as a father to their son. And it's been so cool to see that. And I've been able to see that by doing father and son events. So last year I did eight eight father and son events, and primarily ages ranged from 7 8ish to 12 13 14. And those events were phenomenal because they're designed in a way that a father and a son can come and really have a day of intentionality together, a day that they spend together. It's just them with other boys, other dads, but the activities within the day are designed specifically for them as a father and son, not necessarily the group as a whole. So they're thinking about everything in terms of their relationship, and they went amazingly. The feedback I got from dads was incredible. But there was something missing. And what was missing from that event was what comes next. And I think that's again what dads are kind of searching for. Like it's great to go and experience an event and get motivated and hoorah, this is a lot of fun, but there's also needs to be something tangible that they can use to walk with their son. And I was had this at the top of my brain this year because my oldest is turning 10. And this is the time is now for me to be walking with him every day, every week, making sure that I'm the person he turns to when he has questions about this world and what he's experiencing as he goes through puberty in a few years. So I sat down to think about what this could look like. And what has developed is this incredible, beautiful path that starts with an event. It starts with this crossing of a threshold, so to speak, in a father's recognition of the importance of his intentionality throughout his son's journey. It's great to just come in, do a rite of passage, and he's initiating now into manhood. But what comes before? What comes after? So the Mighty Men path is what has developed. You come in, you cross this threshold at my event, which is called Forging the Future, and it's the catalyst, it's the catalytic moment that you say, okay, this is it. This is what I have to do as a father. You recognize your responsibility, and then the path starts. And the first part of the path is called Pathfinder. It's a 2-year program, and what you receive from me is monthly guidance in how you can be walking with your son, how you can be having a father and son council every single week. What do you need to charge him with? What do you need to spur him into embracing trials and circumstances and challenges throughout his journey? And then all of it, because I'm a believer, because I believe biblical masculinity is where we need to be, all of it is backed by scripture. And this program is 2 years. It sounds like a lot, but that is actually the small part of what is required of you as a father, because you're required to walk with him throughout his journey. And it's designed in a way that a father can walk with his son uh, in a way that is not overly demanding. It is meant to occur naturally in moments that you may already have or are already occurring. So you can have these moments, and there's just a little bit more of a spark of intentionality behind them as he grows and as you walk with him, as he approaches puberty. So then puberty occurs, and it's now what? Now what do we do? Well, eventually, like, you're going to need to do some sort of initiation into manhood if you're walking this path intentionally. But how do we prepare for that? Because he's just gone through a couple years of formation, and now he's through puberty. But is there a jump to the rite of passage? Well, there's actually a whole nother year called Navigator. And Navigator is meant to prepare for the readiness markers that they need to go through the rite of passage, which is the voyage. And guess what? It doesn't even end there, because now he's a man. He's experienced all this training and equipping and understanding, but now he's actually got to live it. So the relationship between father and son changes a little bit. It's now a man-to-man relationship, more of a mentorship role, and you're not super hands-on, and it's not easy. But that is an additional year program called Expedition, and I'm going to be running that in partnership with a nonprofit that I started and I'm a part of for men's ministries within churches called the 11th Hour Alliance. And that expedition is meant to be a year, but at the end of that, it ends on a missions trip with the 11th Hour Alliance, surrounded by other men out on mission together. And there's an amazing ceremony that's going to occur on that mission trip called the commissioning. And from that moment, that son will be commissioned by his father and a community of men into the rest of his life and his responsibility as a man in this world. So the Mighty Men path, it's very long, it's very robust, but every step of the way, it's really what a boy needs from a young age into post-puberty initiation and even into his life as a man. And I cannot be more excited to be running my boys through this pathway, because this is everything I needed as a young man, as a young boy, and more. Even as a young man, in my young adult years, I could have used some of this stuff. And it's patterned in a way where in Pathfinder, you're walking with him very closely. That's the formation time. Then when it comes to post-puberty discipleship time, you're kind of releasing him just a little bit. You're giving him space to operate within his own authority so that he can learn and experience lessons and consequences that he otherwise wouldn't. But he's also understands that you're kind of present. You're there if he does experience things that are uncomfortable. He can then still turn to his dad and receive advice. But But post initiation expedition is really meant like, hey, son, you're a man now. Like this is especially meant for a father and son situation. Like, hey, my son, he was we did a rite of passage. It was great. He went to boot camp now, and he's gone. Well, guess what? Your role does and responsibilities don't stop as a father. You still need to walk with him. So that I cannot be more excited for the Mighty Man Path. It's launching April 1st. Pathfinder is going to have open enrollment every month for a limited window in each month. And then Navigator is going to have 2 cohorts every year. And Navigator and Pathfinder will launch next April, next month. And I cannot be more excited about it, man. It's been the evolution and sort of state that Voyage Rites has needed to go to since its inception. And it's going to bear so much fruit in fathers. It's going to bear so much fruit in boys. And I can't wait to see it, man. Can't wait.
May it also bear so much fruit across our society. I mean,
100%.
that's what there's a yearning for this that's what I've been
Mhm.
so struck by the work you've been doing over the last year and a half that I've known of you and gotten to know you and your brother and some of the Apogee guys. It's like there's such a need for this. Tell me a little bit of on the business side as you've evolved. Like Voyage Rites, you started this 2 years ago, a year ago. What
Mhm.
inception?
Yeah. Gosh, inception, the moment of clarity that I needed was actually amidst my journey with the Apogee Man program. Phenomenal program. Highly recommend it to any man who's kind of searching for where he needs to be in life. And within the second month of that program, it was the task was to define our chief definite aim. What would move the needle the most in your life if you were to accomplish it by the end of the year? And then how are you going to do it? To me, it had to be about my boys. And I had heard of the idea of rites of passage. So I said, okay, my chief definite aim is going to be figuring out what a rite of passage will look like for my boys and our family. And then I sort of discovered, well, yes, I discovered through reading The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss that there's actually a way to automate, delegate, and eliminate tasks to achieve freedom from whatever you might call it, a big corporation or from government work, which is where I was. And in that moment, I made the connection between rites of passage and freedom and sovereignty in my life and for my family. And I said, I can do this to support fathers. And immediately in that moment, I felt a fire in my soul that I never felt before in my life. It was um there's no other way to describe it other than my calling. And like I knew in that moment, like this was my path, this was my destiny, this is what I was designed to be doing. And more so than I ever felt for law enforcement. Law enforcement was really good for me. 14 years, I had a lot of fun, learned a lot about who I was as a man, as a protector and a provider. But I knew that my path was out. So at the time I was in New York, working, driving in and out of the city, traveling a bit. And then, so my first step was to get out of New York, come back to Virginia, where I'm from, born and raised. Ended up here at the National Academy at the FBI grounds here on Quantico Marine Corps Base, and ended up taking the deferred resignation last year, really understanding that this was my opportunity to really focus in and provide sort of a safety buffer for my family as I continued to build Voyage Rites. And that was when all the events started occurring. And I traveled up and down the East Coast running these father and son events, learned a lot about how that was to be structured. And by the time I got around to my last few events, it was really a beautiful, beautiful day, a wonderful day for fathers and sons to come together and experience a great time. And now we know what's next too. So I've got a lot of events coming up this year as well. My next one's in Fredericksburg, Texas. My good buddy Chris, who runs an Apogee school out there, he's running the event, and he ran one last year as well. So this one is going to be amazing, and really hope that a bunch of fathers and sons are able to attend that. And then I'll be doing one here in Virginia in May. And then I'm in conversations to host 7 more. So we're up to 9 events this year. So it's going to be a busy year, but it's really exciting because that's it. That's the catalytic moment. And I would add that those who attend the event or a recognized catalytic moment, that is rewarded on the pathway, on the Mighty Man path. It's not it's not just something you come to. It's like, okay, great, you did the event, now you get the ticket in. It's a significant recognition. So all that can be read on the website. Everything's on the website right now. Registrations will open April 1st for the path, but there's a couple registrations up for Forge in the Future, which is the event. If anybody's interested in checking that out.
Brilliant. You're coming a little further west one of these days. Is that fair?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Actually not, I don't have any Midwest ones on the calendar, so we got to figure something out. I got a buddy looking for a location for me in Northern California. And I'll probably be in Florida for a couple events, New Jersey. Um, there's a lot.
Well, hell
I
yeah.
feel like there was more in there too.
We got to get you into
But
the
more coming. North Carolina.
the Colorado realm, the Rocky Mountains somewhere.
I would love to.
Yeah, we're gonna. I have a sense we're gonna be collaborating together in the future. We'll just put that
Yes.
into the
Yes.
man. So you're technically what, a year and a half into this? Is that I'm trying to read the.
Well, we launched January 1st, 2024. So
There you go.
couple years, a little bit more than couple years now.
Yeah.
It started out as downloadable guides, which they're actually still available on the website. If you just want some sort of guidance, there's one for boys ages 8 to 12, and then boys ages 13 plus. So if you just want some downloadable assurance and guidance, those are still available online. But as Voyage Rites has evolved from its inception, it's really come to this Mighty Man path, and that's really what it's all about. It's preparing boys for the voyage, for the journey, and then continuing their masculine journey, even on after initiation.
What's the website for Voyage Rites?
Super simple, voyagerites.com. Although you do have to remember, rites is spelled Rites. Your voice to text will not think of that when you try to say Voyage Rites.
Yeah, isn't that funny? The idea of rites, or a rite of passage, is so so uncommonplace that we don't even know how to spell it. It turns out.
Yeah.
Dan, you're up to some really important work, and I love just the business
Thank you.
journey, the personal journey, but also the business journey. That
Mm-hmm.
something finally coalesced for you, and I wonder if there's any
Yeah.
men out there who feel like, well, I'm in my career, it's good enough, or it's it's
Mm-hmm.
sufficient,
Mm-hmm.
but there's something else out
Mm-hmm.
there,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's apogee or something like apogee, whether it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
formal program, then there's a bunch of good ones
Yep.
out there, or through a church or through a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different ways to take agency over
Yeah.
our own path as men, to help us see more, to see things differently,
Mm-hmm.
and then lead us to the 4-hour
Mm-hmm.
work week, or whatever the other,
Yeah.
whatever that's
Yeah.
going to be for other people, to help you realize, oh dang, there's a completely different
Yep.
path for me, or version of me to pursue.
Yes.
And I love that was a calling for you, dude. I can just
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
see that in the way you talk about this work, and just how adamant you are that clearly
Mm-hmm.
you had a revelational kind of moment.
Yeah, it was really unforeseen, but very much needed. Because I was that guy. I was just sort of stumbling my way through life, drifting, as so to speak. If you've read the book Outwitting the Devil, that by Napoleon Hill,
Mm.
that was my life. I was just drifting, and I knew from really as a young adult, I knew that there was greatness that I was intended for, and I didn't know what it was. I just sort of continued to drift. But thankfully, and thanks be to God that He brought my calling and revealed to me my calling. And for any other man who's drifting, I think the best advice I could give is just start having conversations with other men and ask them, like, instead of the normal like football scores or baseball stats, whatever it may be, like ask them like what they're doing to improve these days. How are they seeking to become a better man? And you're going to find that that is a very foreign question that most men have not even considered. So where would you look to have that kind of conversation? Well, you need to look for a men's group, and that can be online. that could be in person. It could be out of a church. There's a lot of options these days, especially as there's been global recognition of the attacks on manhood, and there's a lot of options. But don't be overwhelmed by the options. I encourage you just to get plugged in. I got plugged in with an online men's group that was in Apogee, and that was a very, very good start for me. It was what I needed to sort of get the ball rolling on sort of an avenue, a pathway of self-improvement in my life, and understanding of where I needed to be and who I needed to be as a husband and father and as a man. So just get plugged in somewhere, and start your journey, because we didn't have it as kids. Our dads didn't know that we needed to start a journey, and that's where we need to be as men.
Thinking about trying to empathize with the dad who, may not have started the journey at all for themselves, and then to think about, well, I got to start this journey for myself, go on it myself, and then set my son up for this journey. It can sound daunting, right? So ultimately, let's recognize for sure it's work. It is absolutely work. It's going to require a lot of character out of you, and that's what this is. This is a journey of courage, and going into the unknown a little bit, right? And trusting in perhaps the Almighty a little bit, and maybe that's not the only way, but it can be a part of it, and relying on your fellow men. And I think you said it right. Not every dad or every guy out there is having real deep conversations about personal growth and self-improvement, and it's easy just to talk the superficial stuff. But there's dudes out there who are in pursuit of their greatness, and they haven't figured it all out. They're just in the throes of it. So find a few.
That's right.
Hit me up. Hit Dan up. We're here as just men along the path as well, doing our best, sorting it out. We have maybe more answers than we did 2 years ago, but that's because we took the first few steps, right? So.
Yep, and it doesn't mean we have all the answers either. We're still on this journey. I'm still on this journey. I'm still in the throes of young fatherhood. And a lot of this is just me trying to figure out what's right for me and my family, but also wanting to use it as a way to support other dads in their journeys as well. So would love to have a chat if anybody's up for it.
Come on. Dan Smith, thank you for your heart, your courage, your passion, your time, and for sharing what you're up to. For those listening, keep in touch with Dan. I'll share in the description of the podcast how to get in touch with Dan and Voyage Rites, and some of the content, curriculum, the resources. Is just a plethora of options, and I can't wait to see what you're going to pull off in the coming years. It's just the beginning.
Yeah, man. It is. It really is just the beginning. Multiple beginnings, as they say, but this is it, and I'm fired up. I absolutely love this stuff. As you can tell, I could talk about this stuff all day. So I would love to have conversations with more dads. Get plugged in, get part of a community, and check it out. I'm on all the social medias, the whole 9 yards. So more than happy to have a conversation.
Dan Smith, thanks for your time, brother. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Yes, sir.
There you have it. I believe the world is calling on us as fathers to step up and be stewards and shepherds of those around us. The times are interesting, and they are demanding more out of us than perhaps we once realized. It's because of that I want to celebrate and honor the ultimate role of fatherhood and set up dads for maximum impact. So thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe so you can catch the coming episodes. And above all, share this episode with a father you admire. See you on the next one.
Whoa, Dad, go, Dad, here we go now. Oh, yeah, the ultimate roll now. Oh, yeah, here we go now. Whoa, Dad, go.